A quiet evening turns loud. The soft glow of chandeliers bathed the restaurant in golden light. A delicate symphony of clinking glasses, quiet laughter, and murmured conversations filled the air. The establishment, renowned for its exclusivity and refined atmosphere, was a haven for those who sought to escape the chaos of the outside world. Keanu Reeves walked in with an effortless grace, dressed in his signature understated style, a simple black jacket, dark jeans, and a demeanor that carried the weight of quiet humility. He had always preferred places like this, where he could blend into the background, savor a peaceful evening, and enjoy the simple pleasure of solitude. He chose a discreet corner table, away from the prying eyes of admirers and flashing cameras. The scent of roasted coffee beans lingered as he took a slow sip from the steaming cup in front of him. His fingers turned the pages of a book, lost in its words, enjoying a rare moment of tranquility. But that peace was about to be disrupted. Across the restaurant, a young boy in a wheelchair sat with his mother. His face was alight with curiosity, his bright eyes scanning the elegant menu in front of him. His small hands trembled slightly as he traced the ornate lettering, mouthing the words to himself. His mother, a woman with gentle features and eyes that carried both exhaustion and immense love, leaned in, whispering words of encouragement. Keanu observed them with quiet interest. He didn't need to know their story to understand it. The boy's struggles, the mother's patience, these were the marks of a bond forged through challenges and unwavering love. The boy hesitated for a moment before raising his hand to signal the waiter. His movements were slow but determined, his fingers curling as he sought attention. A man in a crisp white shirt and black tie approached. He had a rigid stance, his lips pressed into a tight line. There was something about him, an air of impatience, of barely restrained irritation. "What'll it be?" the waiter asked, his tone flat, almost dismissive. The boy, clearly excited, looked up and tried to speak, but his words came out in slow, careful syllables. It was clear he had difficulty forming sentences quickly. His mother placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I'd like, the PP-Paz." The boy struggled with the words, his small face twisting with effort. Keanu's fingers tightened around his coffee cup. He had seen this kind of struggle before, the desire to be independent, to be heard, to be respected. The waiter sighed audibly, rolling his eyes. "Come on, kid. Spit it out." A hush fell over the surrounding tables. A few diners glanced over, their expressions a mix of discomfort and disbelief. The boy's face flushed red. He shifted in his chair, struggling to push out the rest of the words. But the moment was stolen from him. The waiter scoffed. "Look, I don't have all night. Maybe your mom should just order for you." The mother's eyes darkened. "He can order for himself," she said firmly. Keanu sat up straighter, closing his book. His expression remained calm, but there was a fire in his gaze. The boy took a shaky breath. "Pasta Alfredo, please." The waiter smirked. "See, wasn't that hard, was it?" His tone dripped with condescension. A few guests exchanged awkward glances, unsure whether to intervene or pretend they hadn't noticed. The mother's lips tightened, but she chose not to escalate the situation. Instead, she gave her son an encouraging smile. Keanu, however, had seen enough. Placing his coffee down, he quietly pushed his chair back and stood. He didn't storm across the room or cause a scene. Instead, he walked with the same quiet presence that had made him famous, not just as an actor, but as a man who believed in doing the right thing when no one else would. He approached the table just as the waiter turned to leave. "Excuse me," Keanu said, his voice calm but firm. The waiter turned, eyebrows raising slightly when he recognized him. Yes, sir. Did you need something?" Keanu ignored the stares from nearby guests. His attention was solely on the boy and his mother. He crouched slightly so he was at eye level with the young boy. "You have great taste," Keanu said with a small smile. "Alfredo is one of my favorites, too." The boy blinked in surprise before his lips curved into a hesitant smile. "Really? Really?" Keanu turned back to the waiter, his expression unreadable. "And I'm sure the kitchen will make it extra delicious for him." "Right." The waiter swallowed. Of course." Keanu didn't break eye contact. His gaze wasn't harsh, but there was something in it, something that made the waiter fidget under the weight of his own actions. "Good," Keanu said simply. Then, turning to the mother, he added, "Would it be all right if I join you both for dinner?" The mother's eyes widened, caught between shock and gratitude. The boy beamed. "Why, yes." Keanu smiled. "Great. I think tonight calls for a celebration." And with that, he pulled up a chair, determined to turn a painful moment into one of joy. But this was only the beginning. A lesson in kindness. The atmosphere in the restaurant had shifted. A moment ago, it had been filled with hushed whispers, polite conversation, and the occasional clink of silverware against porcelain. Now all eyes were drawn to the unexpected sight at the corner table, the world-famous Keanu Reeves sitting beside a young boy in a wheelchair, his presence radiating warmth rather than celebrity status. Keanu had pulled up a chair without hesitation, as though this dinner was always meant to happen. He didn't treat the boy with pity or awkward kindness. Instead, he made him feel like any other kid out for a nice meal. The nervous excitement in the child's eyes was unmistakable, and his mother watched the interaction with quiet gratitude, her heart swelling with appreciation. Across the room, the waiter who had spoken so cruelly moments ago shifted uncomfortably. His smug attitude had faltered. He cleared his throat, straightened his tie, and hurried away, perhaps hoping to avoid further scrutiny. Keanu leaned in slightly, giving the boy his full attention. "So tell me, what's your name?" The boy hesitated for a second, then spoke. "Michael." Keanu smiled. "Michael, that's a strong name. You know, I had a good friend named Michael once, one of the kindest, funniest guys I've ever met." Michael's eyes widened, his lips twitching into a shy smile. Really?" "Really," Keanu nodded. "And just from meeting you, I can already tell you've got that same kindness." Michael blushed, gripping the edge of his wheelchair armrests. His mother, sitting beside him, reached out and squeezed his hand lightly. She had spent years watching her son struggle to be seen and heard, always overshadowed by assumptions that his disability defined him. Tonight, for the first time in a long while, she saw a different kind of light in his eyes, one that spoke of validation, of confidence. A different waiter approached their table this time, an older man with graying hair and a friendly demeanor. He gave them a warm smile as he carefully placed Michael's plate in front of him. "One Alfredo pasta, just the way you like it," the man said cheerfully. "And for you, sir?" He turned to Keanu. "I'll have the same," Keanu replied without hesitation. "And a glass of sparkling water, please." "Coming right up." The waiter nodded before retreating toward the kitchen. Michael picked up his fork, his fingers a little shaky. He was used to eating at home, where there were no staring eyes, no impatient waiters judging him for being slow. Here, though, things felt different. Keanu didn't rush him. His mother didn't remind him to hurry. He twirled the pasta onto his fork, bringing it to his mouth. The first bite was warm and creamy, comforting in a way that went beyond taste. Keanu took a bite of his own dish and let out an exaggerated mum, grinning at Michael. "That's some good pasta." Michael giggled, nodding. As they ate, Keanu kept the conversation going with ease, never making Michael feel like he had to rush his words. They talked about everything. Movies, video games, motorcycles. Keanu told a few funny stories from his own childhood, stories of falling off his bike and getting back up, of failing at something but trying again. Each story had an unspoken message. You're stronger than you think. Michael hung onto every word. His mother wiped her eyes discreetly, overwhelmed by the simple but profound kindness that Keanu had shown her son. Then, just as the dinner seemed to settle into a comfortable rhythm, an all-too-familiar voice interrupted. Well, it looks like you're enjoying your meal." The same waiter from before had returned. His tone was polite, but the smirk on his face betrayed something else, something snide, something insincere. He glanced at Michael's half-eaten plate, his arms crossed. Michael stiffened, his mother's jaw clenched. Keanu, however, remained composed. He calmly placed his fork down, locking eyes with the waiter. "Is there a problem?" The waiter shrugged. "Oh, not at all. I was just checking in, making sure everything's okay. Sometimes, kids struggle to finish their food in places like this." Michael lowered his fork, his appetite suddenly gone. Keanu didn't hesitate. "I don't think Michael is struggling with anything," he said, his voice level but firm. "He's enjoying his meal just fine." The waiter chuckled, shaking his head. "Look, Mr. Reeves, I get it. You're being the nice guy, the hero. But let's be real here. This isn't the kind of place for, well, special accommodations." The words hung in the air like a cold wind cutting through warmth. A few gasps sounded from nearby tables. Michael's mother gripped the table's edge, her face pale with fury. But before she could speak, Keanu leaned forward slightly, his voice calm yet commanding. "I'd like to ask you something," Keanu said, tilting his head slightly. The waiter blinked, caught off guard. Sure." "Do you know what real strength is?" Keanu asked. His tone wasn't aggressive, but it carried weight. The waiter hesitated. Keanu gestured toward Michael. "Real strength isn't about walking into a room and making people feel small. It's about lifting others up. It's about kindness, patience. Strength is when you see someone struggling, and instead of making them feel worse, you help." The restaurant had gone completely silent now. Even the background music seemed distant. Keanu's eyes remained locked on the waiter. "Now tell me, who do you think is the strongest person at this table?" The waiter swallowed hard, his face pale. He glanced at Michael, then back at Keanu, shifting uncomfortably. Keanu didn't break his gaze. "Because from where I'm sitting, it's not me. It's not you. It's Michael." The waiter opened his mouth as if to argue, but no words came out. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, and for the first time, he looked ashamed. Michael, who had spent years feeling invisible, suddenly felt seen. He wasn't just a kid in a wheelchair tonight. He was strong. He was important. The waiter mumbled something under his breath and hurried away, disappearing into the kitchen. A small round of applause rippled through the restaurant. A few guests smiled at Michael, nodding in approval. Michael looked up at Keanu, his voice quiet but filled with something new, confidence. "Thank you." Keanu smiled warmly. "You don't have to thank me, buddy. You were always strong. You just needed someone to remind you." Michael's mother reached out, squeezing Keanu's hand. "You have no idea what this means to us." Keanu shook his head. "No thanks needed. Tonight is about Michael. And something tells me this won't be the last time he proves people wrong." Michael beamed, holding his head a little higher. Keanu raised his glass of sparkling water. "To Michael." His mother lifted her glass, eyes shining with pride. "To Michael." And for the first time, Michael lifted his own glass with confidence. "To me." The restaurant, once filled with quiet judgment and hesitation, now felt like a place of celebration. And in the midst of it all, a young boy left with something far greater than a meal. He left with the belief that he was more than enough, just as he was. The weight of words. The restaurant's quiet hum gradually resumed, but the atmosphere had changed. It was no longer just a place for fine dining and whispered conversations. It had become the setting of an unforgettable lesson in kindness and strength. The moment lingered in the air, imprinted on the faces of those who had witnessed it. Michael, still clutching his glass, felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the pasta or the restaurant's soft lighting. For the first time in a long while, he felt something new, pride. Not just in himself, but in the fact that someone had stood up for him. That someone had seen past the wheelchair and recognized his worth. His mother wiped the corner of her eyes discreetly, though her smile never wavered. It had been years of struggle, of encouraging her son to believe in himself, even when the world made it difficult. And tonight, for the first time, she saw a glimpse of the confidence she always knew was inside him. Keanu leaned back in his chair, his presence as effortless as ever. "You know, Michael, when I was younger, I had a speech problem too." Michael's eyes widened. You did?" Keanu nodded. "Oh yeah. I used to stutter. A lot." He smiled slightly. "There were times I could barely get a full sentence out without tripping over my words. It made things hard. I had teachers who didn't think I was smart. I had kids who laughed when I talked." Michael stared, hanging on to every word. He had never thought that someone like Keanu, someone famous, someone admired, could have struggled the way he did. Keanu continued, his voice warm. "But you know what I learned? That the way you speak doesn't define who you are. And the people who care about you, they'll listen, no matter how long it takes for you to say what's on your mind." Michael swallowed, processing the words. His mother reached over and ran a hand through his hair. "See, sweetheart, you're not alone in this." Keanu nodded, not even close. Just then, the friendly older waiter returned, placing a chocolate dessert in front of Michael with a wink. "Compliments of the chef, kiddo. And don't worry, I made sure it's extra sweet." Michael's grin stretched wide. Thank you." As the boy eagerly took a bite, his excitement evident, Keanu watched him with quiet amusement. But just as he was about to take another sip of his water, a voice interrupted from the side. "Excuse me, Mr. Reeves." Keanu turned, expecting another admirer, but instead, he found himself looking at a middle-aged man in a navy suit. He had a confident air about him, but not in an arrogant way. He gave a polite nod before gesturing toward the seat beside Keanu. "May I?" Keanu raised an eyebrow, but nodded. "Sure." The man pulled out the chair and sat down, smoothing out his sleeves before exhaling softly. His gaze shifted toward Michael, then back to Keanu. "I wanted to say what you did back there was incredible." Keanu shrugged. "It was just the right thing to do." The man smiled. "Maybe. But in my line of work, I've seen a lot of people look the other way." He extended a hand. "James Peterson. I run a nonprofit that helps kids with disabilities integrate into regular school programs." Keanu shook his hand firmly. "That's amazing." James nodded. "It is, but it's tough. There's a lot of pushback. Schools say they're inclusive, but in reality, kids like Michael get ignored or dismissed." He turned to Michael and his mother. "I couldn't help but notice how smart this young man is, and how strong." Michael flushed, glancing at his mother. His mother hesitated before asking, "What does your nonprofit do, exactly?" James leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the table. "We provide mentorship programs, speech therapy, and support systems for kids who are often left out. We also have a scholarship program that helps kids with disabilities pursue their dreams, whether it's in academics, sports, or the arts." Michael's eyes lit up. "Oh, really?" James smiled. "Really. And after what I saw tonight, I think you'd be a great fit for our mentorship program." Michael looked at his mother, seeking permission. His mother, overwhelmed but hopeful, nodded. That would be wonderful." Keanu smiled. "Looks like you're about to make some big waves, buddy." Michael's excitement was palpable. I'd love that." James pulled out a card and handed it to his mother. "We have a summer camp coming up in a few weeks. If you're interested, give me a call. I'd love to introduce Michael to some other kids who've been through similar experiences." Michael held the card in his hands as though it was a golden ticket. The moment was perfect, until a sharp voice sliced through the air. "Oh, come on." The table turned toward the source of the voice. It was the original waiter, the one who had humiliated Michael earlier. He stood by the bar, arms crossed, watching the scene with barely concealed disdain. "Now we're just handing out charity to anyone who whines enough." The air grew tense. Keanu's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. You still don't get it, do you? The waiter scoffed. I get it. Some celebrity walks in, makes a big show of helping a kid, and suddenly he's a hero. But what happens tomorrow? You walk away, and the world goes back to the way it was. He shook his head. Nothing changes. Keanu studied him for a long moment before speaking. You're wrong. The waiter smirked. Am I? Keanu gestured to Michael. Look at him. The waiter hesitated, but his eyes flickered toward the boy. Keanu continued, his voice steady. That kid walked in here tonight thinking he was less, thinking he didn't belong. And now he knows he's just as important as anyone else in this room. That's change. And it starts with one person at a time. The waiter rolled his eyes. Words don't change the world, man. Keanu smiled slightly. Maybe not, but they can change a life. Michael's mother exhaled shakily, her grip on her son's hand tightening. James nodded in quiet agreement. The waiter, however, had no response. Finally, with a muttered curse, he turned on his heel and disappeared into the back of the restaurant. Michael, still holding the business card, looked up at Keanu with admiration shining in his eyes. Thank you for everything. Keanu grinned. You don't have to thank me, buddy. Just promise me one thing. Michael nodded eagerly. Promise me you'll never let anyone make you feel small again. Michael took a deep breath, his grip on the card tightening. His mother watched, teary-eyed, as her son straightened his posture. IP promise. Keanu clinked his glass against Michael's. That's my guy. And at that moment, in the dim glow of the restaurant, surrounded by the echoes of a lesson learned, Michael knew this night was only the beginning of something much bigger, a ripple effect of kindness. The restaurant's ambience slowly returned to normal, but for Michael, his mother, and everyone who had witnessed the exchange, the night would never be the same. The moment had changed something deep within them, a realization that words, both cruel and kind, had the power to shape a person's reality. Michael sat a little taller in his wheelchair, his fingers still clutched around James Peterson's business card. It felt like more than just a piece of paper. It was a doorway to a future he had never allowed himself to imagine before tonight. Keanu leaned back in his chair, watching the boy with a satisfied smile. It was rare to see someone so young experience such a pivotal shift in their self-perception. He knew Michael wouldn't forget this night, and neither would he. Michael's mother, still processing everything, turned to James. This program, how does it work? What kind of support do you offer? James smiled warmly, adjusting his posture. We believe in empowering kids by surrounding them with people who see their potential rather than their limitations. We offer mentorship programs, social integration workshops, speech therapy, and even extracurricular activities designed to boost confidence. He glanced at Michael. We also match kids with role models who've overcome similar challenges, people who can inspire and guide them. Michael's eyes widened. Like Keanu. James chuckled, nodding. Exactly. Though I doubt we can get Keanu as a full-time mentor. Keanu smirked. Well, I wouldn't say that so fast. James raised an eyebrow. You're interested? Keanu turned to Michael. I've got some free time coming up. How about I check out this program myself? Maybe even visit the summer camp. Michael's face lit up like fireworks. His mother gasped, placing a hand over her heart. Are you serious? Keanu shrugged, a playful glint in his eye. Why not? Sounds like a great way to spend some time. James shook his head in amazement. Well, I wasn't expecting that, but if you're in, we'd love to have you. Michael grinned from ear to ear. This is the best night ever. Keanu chuckled. And it's only the beginning. But just as the warmth of the moment settled in, the tension from earlier came creeping back. The restaurant manager, a tall, refined-looking man with slicked back hair, stepped forward, his expression tense. He cleared his throat before addressing Keanu. Mr. Reeves, I apologize for the earlier unpleasantness. He adjusted his tie, shifting uncomfortably under Keanu's calm but piercing gaze. "I assure you that our establishment does not tolerate discrimination of any kind." Keanu raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" The manager nodded stiffly. "Yes, and I will personally see to it that the waiter in question is disciplined." Michael's mother frowned slightly. "Disciplined? That's all?" The manager hesitated. "Well, Keanu cut in, his voice calm but firm. "Firing him won't fix the problem." The manager blinked. "Excuse me." Keanu leaned forward slightly. "The issue isn't just about one waiter. It's about how people like Michael are treated every day. Getting rid of him won't stop another from doing the same thing somewhere else." He tapped his fingers on the table thoughtfully. "You want to make things right. Make sure your staff understands why what happened tonight was wrong." The manager looked unsure. "You mean training?" Keanu nodded. "A seminar, workshops, something that teaches them to treat everyone with respect, no matter their ability." James, who had been listening intently, added, "My nonprofit actually offers diversity and inclusion training. We can provide a program tailored for your staff." The manager glanced around, noticing the number of guests still watching the conversation unfold. Realizing that all eyes were on him, he straightened his posture. "Very well. I will arrange for your organization to provide a training session. And as a token of apology," he turned to Michael's mother, "your meal tonight is on the house." Michael's mother softened, nodding in appreciation. "Thank you." Michael, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. And the waiter." Everyone turned to him. Michael fidgeted with his napkin, but looked determined. I don't want him to lose his job. But, can he learn?" Keanu and James exchanged a look. Keanu smiled, then turned to the manager. "That's up to you." The manager sighed, rubbing his temple. "I'll make sure he attends the training. If he wants to keep his job, he'll have to prove he's willing to change." Michael beamed, satisfied with that answer. Just then, an older woman sitting at a nearby table stood up. She had white hair, kind eyes, and a sophisticated air about her. "Excuse me," she said, addressing Keanu and Michael. "I couldn't help but overhear everything." Keanu nodded, inviting her to speak. She smiled warmly at Michael. "You are a remarkable young man. Your kindness and wisdom far exceed your age." Michael blushed. Thank you." She then turned to Keanu. "And you, Mr. Reeves, I already admired you as an actor, but tonight, I admire you as a human being even more." Keanu smiled humbly. "I just did what anyone should do." The woman reached into her purse, pulled out a checkbook, and began writing. "I'd like to make a donation to your organization, Mr. Peterson." James's eyes widened. "That's incredibly generous." The woman handed him the check. "Children like Michael deserve every opportunity to shine." Michael's mother wiped her eyes. "This is all overwhelming." Keanu chuckled. "In a good way, I hope." She laughed through her tears. "The best way." As the night came to a close, the restaurant had transformed from an elegant dining establishment into a place of change, a place where kindness had won over cruelty, where a young boy had found his confidence, and where strangers had become allies. Michael looked at Keanu with admiration. Thank you. For everything." Keanu smiled. "No need to thank me, buddy. Just remember one thing." Michael tilted his head. Keanu tapped his chest lightly. "The world might not always be kind, but you can be. And kindness, that's what changes everything." Michael grinned, nodding. As they walked out of the restaurant, Keanu felt something deep in his chest, a quiet satisfaction, the kind that came not from fame or fortune, but from knowing he had made a real difference. And as Michael rolled beside him, holding his head high, Keanu knew this was only the beginning. The power of one voice. The night air was crisp as Keanu, Michael, his mother, and James Peterson stepped out of the restaurant. The events inside still hung heavy in their minds, but for Michael, something had shifted. He felt different, stronger, braver. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just watching someone stand up for him. He was part of it. He had spoken up, and people had listened. Keanu tucked his hands into his jacket pockets, glancing down at Michael with an easy smile. "So, buddy, what now?" Michael hesitated. The old version of himself, the one who would have shrugged and let others decide for him, was fading. He gripped the edge of his wheelchair, his mind racing with thoughts he never allowed himself to have before. "I do want to help," he finally said. His mother looked at him, surprised. "Help?" Michael nodded, his excitement growing. There are other kids like me, who feel like they don't belong." He swallowed hard. Maybe I can speak to them. Help them all like you helped me." James grinned. "That's an amazing idea, Michael." Keanu's smile widened. "I like the way you think." Michael straightened in his chair. "Can I visit your C camp, Mr. James?" James nodded. "Absolutely. And if you're interested, I'd love to introduce you to some of the other kids in our program. They'd love to hear your story." Michael's eyes sparkled with excitement. The idea of being someone who could inspire others, who could stand up for those who felt unseen, filled him with a confidence he had never known before. Keanu placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. "You've already got the heart of a leader. Now you just need the right stage." Michael beamed. James checked his watch and sighed. "I should get going. But Michael, I'll be in touch soon." He turned to Keanu, shaking his hand. "And Mr. Reeves, what you did tonight, you didn't just change one kid's life. You started something bigger." Keanu gave a small nod. "Let's hope so." With that, James left, disappearing into the busy city night. Michael's mother looked at Keanu, her voice thick with emotion. "How do we even begin to thank you?" Keanu shook his head. "You don't have to." She smiled, but there was something deeper in her expression, something beyond gratitude. She saw, truly saw, the kind of person Keanu was, not just a Hollywood star, but a man who believed in doing the right thing, not just talking about it. Just as they were about to head home, a voice called out, "Excuse me." They turned to see the older woman from the restaurant, the one who had made the donation. She walked toward them with purpose. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said, offering a warm smile. "But I couldn't leave without saying one more thing." Michael's mother tilted her head. "Of course." The woman crouched slightly, meeting Michael at eye level. "Young man, what you did tonight, it was brave. And I want you to know, people are going to remember you, not just because of what happened inside, but because of what you do next." Michael swallowed hard, his fingers gripping his armrests. She reached into her purse, pulling out a small, elegant envelope. "I run a public speaking initiative that focuses on amplifying young voices, especially those that aren't always heard. We give kids a platform to share their stories, their struggles, and their victories." She handed Michael's mother the envelope. "I'd love for Michael to be part of it." Michael gasped. "Me?" She nodded. You have a story worth telling, and I think the world needs to hear it." Michael's mother pressed a hand to her mouth, emotions threatening to overwhelm her. I don't know what to say." The woman smiled knowingly. "Just say yes." Michael looked at his mother, then at Keanu. Keanu crouched beside him, his voice low but firm. "This is your chance, buddy. You wanted to help other kids, right?" Michael nodded eagerly. "Then take this opportunity. Show them what's possible." Michael inhaled deeply, then turned to the woman. I'd love to." The woman beamed. "Wonderful. I'll be in touch." As she walked away, Keanu ruffled Michael's hair. "You're on your way to changing the world, kid." Michael looked up at him with determination. "Just like you." Keanu shook his head, his expression soft. "No, buddy. You're going to be better than me." Michael's mother wiped her eyes, then took a deep breath. "Well, I think it's time we get home. We have a lot to talk about." Keanu nodded. It was an honor spending the evening with you both. Michael reached out, and Keanu clasped his small hand in a firm shake. Will I see you again? Michael asked, his voice hopeful. Keanu smirked. You can count on it. As Michael and his mother rolled away, disappearing into the city, Keanu watched them go, his heart full. He had come to the restaurant expecting a quiet night. Instead, he had witnessed the birth of something greater, a ripple of kindness, confidence, and change. And he knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning of Michael's journey. With one last glance at the sky, Keanu slipped his hands into his pockets and walked away, knowing that somewhere out there, another young voice was waiting for its chance to be heard, a voice that can't be ignored. Days passed since the unforgettable night at the restaurant, but for Michael, everything felt different. His world had shifted in a way he never expected. Before, he had spent so much time trying to go unnoticed, trying not to take up space. Now, he wanted to be heard. His mother had helped him register for both James Peterson's mentorship program and the public speaking initiative. It was overwhelming, exciting, and terrifying all at once. He had never seen himself as someone who could stand in front of a crowd, let alone inspire others. But Keanu had believed in him, and for the first time in his life, Michael wanted to believe in himself too. The invitation. One afternoon, Michael was sitting by the living room window, practicing his speech aloud. His mother listened, her eyes filled with pride, gently guiding him when he stumbled. You're doing great, sweetheart, she said, squeezing his shoulder. Michael took a deep breath, gripping his index cards. I don't want to mess up. His mother smiled warmly. Even if you do, that's okay. What matters is that you're trying. Just then, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen and froze. Mom? Michael asked. She hesitated before picking it up. Hello. Michael watched as his mother's expression shifted from confusion to shock. You wait, you're serious. She covered her mouth, looking at Michael with wide eyes. Absolutely. Yes. We'll be there. Thank you so much. She hung up and exhaled sharply. Michael frowned. What's going on? His mother took a deep breath, kneeling beside him. That was James. He just got a call from the National Disability Awareness Summit. They saw what happened at the restaurant, and they want you to speak at their event next month. Michael's heart stopped. Me. She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. Yes, they said your story is powerful, and they want you to share it with thousands of people. Michael's hands trembled as he clutched his note cards. The thousands. His mother gently took his hands. Sweetheart, this is huge. It's a chance for people to hear you, to see you, to change how they think. Michael swallowed hard. He thought back to the way the waiter had dismissed him, the way people had looked past him his whole life. He had always believed that was just the way things were. But now he had a choice. I don't know if I can do this, he admitted. His mother stroked his hair. I know it's scary, but you don't have to do it alone. Michael thought for a moment, then made a decision. I do want to call Keanu. His mother smiled. I thought you might. A visit from Keanu. The next day, there was a knock at the door. Michael wheeled himself over as his mother opened it, revealing Keanu Reeves standing on their doorstep, hands in his pockets, a warm smile on his face. Hey, buddy. Michael's face lit up. You came. Keanu stepped inside, crouching to Michael's level. James told me the news. You're going to be speaking at the summit. Michael nodded nervously. I do want to, but I don't know if I can. Keanu sat down across from him, his expression thoughtful. You know, I felt the same way before my first big audition. My nerves were all over the place. I thought I was going to mess up. Michael leaned forward. What happened? Keanu chuckled. I messed up. Michael blinked. You did? Oh yeah. I tripped over my words, forgot my lines, and walked out feeling like I'd blown it. Keanu leaned in. But you know what? The casting director told me that what mattered wasn't perfection, it was authenticity. He said I had something real, and that's why I got the role. Michael swallowed hard. So even if I mess up. Keanu nodded. People won't remember a stumble. They'll remember your message, and you have something important to say. Michael gripped his armrests. But what if I get up there and freeze? Keanu's smile softened. Then I'll be right there, cheering you on. Michael's chest tightened. He had spent so long feeling alone in his struggles. But now he had people who believed in him. And that made all the difference. The summit. A month later, Michael found himself backstage at the National Disability Awareness Summit. The event hall was massive. Thousands of seats. Bright lights, cameras broadcasting the event worldwide. Michael's heart pounded in his chest. His mother sat beside him, holding his hand, while James adjusted his tie. Keanu, dressed in his usual black jacket and jeans, stood nearby, giving Michael a reassuring nod. You ready, buddy? Keanu asked. Michael's hands trembled. And not really. Keanu chuckled. That's okay. No one ever is. Just then, an announcer's voice echoed over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next speaker, Michael Anderson. Applause erupted. Michael's mother squeezed his hand one last time. You've got this, sweetheart. Keanu knelt beside him. Remember, you're not just speaking for yourself. You're speaking for every kid who's ever felt invisible. Michael took a deep breath. Then he wheeled himself onto the stage. Michael's speech. The stage lights were blinding. The audience stretched endlessly before him. Cameras pointed in his direction, waiting. Michael swallowed hard, gripping the edges of the podium. He took a deep breath. Then he spoke. My name is Michael Anderson. And for a long time, I thought my voice didn't matter. The crowd fell silent. I was born different. And because of that, people treated me like I wasn't important. He inhaled sharply, like I didn't belong. Keanu watched from the side of the stage, his heart swelling with pride. But someone saw me, Michael continued, glancing at Keanu. Someone stood up for me. And it made me realize, if one person can change my life, then maybe I can change someone else's. A murmur spread through the crowd. Michael straightened in his chair. Kindness is powerful. Words are powerful, and I want to use mine to help others. He looked out over the sea of faces, his nerves fading. I'm not just a kid in a wheelchair. I'm a person. I have a voice. And so do you. A pause. Then, applause. A thunderous, standing ovation. Tears filled Michael's eyes as he saw people on their feet, clapping, cheering. His mother cried in the front row. James beamed with pride. And Keanu. He stood there, arms crossed, smiling like a proud big brother. Because he knew Michael wasn't invisible anymore. And he never would be again. The beginning of a movement. The applause echoed through the grand hall, shaking the walls with its intensity. Michael sat there in his wheelchair, breathless, eyes wide as thousands of people stood for him. Because of him. His heart pounded in his chest, his hand still gripping the edges of the podium. Never in his life had he felt so seen. Keanu stood off stage, clapping with a small, proud smile, while Michael's mother wiped away tears in the front row. James stood beside her, nodding with admiration, already envisioning what this young boy's future could hold. Michael took another deep breath, letting the energy of the crowd settle in his bones. This was what it felt like to be heard, and he never wanted to go back. The aftermath of a speech that changed everything. As Michael rolled off the stage, he was immediately surrounded. Reporters, photographers, organizers, all of them eager to shake his hand, take his picture, hear more of his story. You were incredible, young man. Your words moved me to tears. You have such a powerful voice. Michael's cheeks burned as he tried to respond to each person, but he still felt overwhelmed. He had spent his whole life blending into the background. Now, suddenly, everyone wanted to hear him speak. His mother knelt beside him, squeezing his hand. "You were amazing, sweetheart." Michael beamed up at her. "I did it." Keanu chuckled, stepping forward. "You sure did, buddy." Michael's excitement bubbled over. Did you see? They were all listening. Keanu crouched to his level, meeting his gaze. "They weren't just listening. They heard you." Michael nodded, barely able to contain his joy. He had always been told that words could change the world. But until tonight, he had never believed that his words could. Then James appeared, a huge grin on his face. "Michael, do you realize what you've just done?" Michael tilted his head. Given a speech. James laughed. "No, kid. You just started something bigger than you realize." He turned to Keanu. "I've been getting calls from other disability organizations. They want to work with Michael. They want him to speak at more events, visit schools, even meet other kids who feel like he once did." Michael's mouth fell open. "Me." His mother covered her mouth, tears pooling in her eyes. James nodded. "You're not just a kid in a wheelchair, Michael. You're a leader now." Michael sat there, trying to process what was happening. His words, his voice, had created a ripple effect. Keanu leaned in. "Looks like you've got a movement to lead, buddy." The first interview. Later that evening, Michael found himself in front of a camera for the first time in his life. A well-dressed interviewer sat across from him, microphone in hand. "Michael, your speech tonight was one of the most moving we've ever heard. How does it feel to know that so many people were inspired by you?" Michael took a deep breath, gripping the arms of his chair. He still felt nervous speaking in front of a crowd, but he remembered Keanu's words. "People won't remember if you stumble. They'll remember your message." So he focused on that. It feels powerful." He paused, thinking. For a long time, I didn't think I mattered. People all looked past me. Treated me like I wasn't important." He swallowed. But tonight, people listened, and I do want to make sure they keep listening." The interviewer nodded. "What's next for you?" Michael smiled. "I do want to help other kids like me, who feel invisible." His expression turned serious. Because, and no one should ever feel like they don't matter." The interviewer turned to Keanu. "And Mr. Reeves, you've been here every step of the way. What has it been like watching Michael go through this journey?" Keanu smiled, placing a hand on Michael's shoulder. "It's been incredible. But this isn't my story. It's his. I just gave him a little push. The rest." He looked at Michael proudly. "He did that on his own." Michael beamed. And for the first time in his life, he truly believed in himself. One voice becomes many. Weeks passed, then months. Michael's story spread like wildfire. He was invited to speak at schools, disability advocacy events, and community centers. His words reached thousands of children who had spent their lives feeling invisible. Children who now saw themselves in Michael and believed they could be something more. People from all over the country sent him letters, thanking him for his courage. But Michael didn't stop there. With Keanu's help, he worked with James to expand the mentorship program, creating more spaces for kids with disabilities to learn, grow, and build confidence. He even started a video series, sharing messages of hope and encouragement with kids like him, kids who had never seen someone like them in the spotlight before. Michael's voice had gone from a quiet whisper to a roar, and the world was listening. A full circle moment. One evening, Michael and his mother sat in their living room, exhausted but happy. He had just finished another speech, and his mother was flipping through a pile of letters from kids who had been inspired by him. Then the doorbell rang. His mother opened the door, and there stood Keanu, hands in his pockets, a warm smile on his face. "Keanu." Michael grinned, wheeling himself over. What are you doing here? Keanu stepped inside, holding up a familiar white envelope. Thought I'd deliver this in person, he said, handing it to Michael. Michael frowned, confused, as he took the envelope and carefully opened it. Then his eyes widened. It was an official invitation from a major Hollywood studio. Keanu grinned. They want to make a documentary about your story. Michael's breath caught in his throat. About me? Keanu nodded. About your journey. About everything you've accomplished. The world needs to hear it. Michael stared at the paper in his hands, disbelief washing over him. His mother covered her mouth. Oh my God. Michael looked up at Keanu, his voice small but filled with wonder. Why me? Keanu crouched beside him, his voice gentle but firm. Because you proved to the world that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, your voice matters. Michael's eyes welled with tears. He had spent his whole life believing he was invisible. Now, the world wanted to see him. And for the first time he knew this was just the beginning. Epilogue. The legacy of kindness. Years later, long after that night at the restaurant, Michael's name became known across the world. His speeches changed lives. His advocacy created real change. And his documentary, it became a beacon of hope for millions. One night, Keanu and Michael sat together, watching the final cut of the film before its release. Michael turned to Keanu, his voice filled with gratitude. Do you think any of this would have happened if you hadn't stepped in that night? Keanu smiled softly, shaking his head. Michael, I didn't change your life. You did. Michael swallowed hard, letting those words sink in. He had started as a kid in a wheelchair, trying to order dinner. Now he was someone the world would never forget. And all it took was one person willing to listen.